Greetings to everyone. I am Julie Gabriel P. Momo of Grade 11 STEM Scorpio. Along with my co-members, we are going to talk about intersubjectivity, a topic tackled in Introduction to the Philosophy of the Human Person. So sit back and learn with us. Lesson 1: Accepting Differences.
As humans, we have the natural and universal tendency to relate, to establish attachments, and seek close relationships with other people. Our human nature drives us to reach out to other people and interact with them in meaningful ways. Social interactions among individuals through comparison, agreement, and confirmation of each other's perceptions make it easier to determine real events occurring in society. This concept is called intersubjectivity, the shared perception of reality between or among two or more individuals. A main principle of intersubjectivity is communalization, a social process wherein the community of other people are seen as embedded within the self. This process initially occurs with the idea that other individuals are extensions of the self and serve as the alter ego of a person's being. When we say something is subjective, we mean that it is factually true. When we say that something is subjective, we mean that it is based on an opinion or a biased viewpoint, not on hard facts. In literature, subjectivity means that the story is told from a biased viewpoint, whether it is told by a character or an unnamed narrator. Everyone in the world has their own subjective viewpoint. Intersubjectivity means that we all influence and are all influenced by others to some degree. The principle of intersubjectivity can be applied to almost any decision we make, big or small. We always have to consider how our actions will affect others. We ourselves are constantly affected with the actions and words of the people around us.
Values related to intersubjectivity. Important values related to intersubjectivity include acceptance of differences and embracing diversity. We understand that each person is unique, therefore, differences will exist among groups of people. When we look at physical traits and behavior, we can see that no two persons look and think the same. We have to accept that people have different views and values. What unites us all is our shared humanity and dignity. The recognition of our shared humanity and dignity is what drives us to extend assistance and act with concern towards others, especially towards individuals or groups that experience hardships and discriminations.
The life and works of different people that will help us understand and accept individual differences.
Gracia Shallow Grace Magno Padaca, born on October 25, 1963, is a Filipino politician and former broadcaster who has been the governor of the Northern Luzon province of Isabela, Philippines from 2004 until 2010. She is also the recipient of the Ramon Magsaysay Award for Public Service in 2008. During her childhood, she survived polio. She has walked with crutches for most of her life. Coming from a poor family and stricken with polio at age 3, Grace pushed herself to excel in academics in order to obtain scholarship and ease the load of her parents. She was a valedictorian in elementary and high school and graduated magna cum laude at Lyceum University in Manila in 1984. 2008 Ramon Magsaysay awarded Grace Padaca may be afflicted with polio, but this did not dissuade her from being the voice of the people as a well-respected broadcast journalist to the champion of the people as Isabela Province Governor of the Philippines. When greatness in spirit is applied, Padaca showed that no disability can be an obstacle to one's desire to improve the world for the better. Work's greatest contribution. Grace Padaca was elected governor of Isabela in 2004, the first woman to take up the post. In the 2007 elections, she was re-elected as governor, an endorsement of the agenda of reforms she began in Isabela politics. On December 5, 2007, the U.S. ambassador to the Philippines, Christy Canay, presented her with the International Women of Courage Award. Isabela Governor Grace Padaca has shown Filipinos that a time will come when people born into poverty and abuse who are victims of conditions will prevail over almost insurmountable odds and start a new mainstream consciousness. Grace was radio commentator for Bombo Radio in Kawayan, Isabela, beginning 1986, receiving the station's Encore Person of the Year award in 1993. She was also one of the 10 outstanding young men and women of the country in 1992 and 1999.
Life and works of Fatima Soriano. Maria Fatima Victa Soriano, or who is mostly known as Fatima Soriano, is a 28-year-old Filipino singer and visionary who was born blind. Fatima Soriano became known at the age of 10 when she was invited to appear at Father Jerry Orbo's radio show as a guest, where she spoke about trusting in God's grace and being hopeful in the face of adversity. At 9 years old, she was undergoing dialysis as her kidneys had already stopped working, and she was suffering from the last stage of a kidney failure. She garnered a total of 1.2 million pesos for her kidney transplant through the help of a text brigade. She underwent another kidney transplant in 2018, and she successfully recovered from both of these, which she was so grateful for. Despite her blindness and everything she went through, Fatima continues to inspire others by using music to help them see God. The following are some of the albums she has released throughout the years: Believe Like a Child in 2006, Journey to the Heart in 2009, Visions in 2011, and Lord of My Life in 2021. Life and works of Raymond Martin. Raymond Martin is a Filipino-American Olympic athlete from Jersey City, New Jersey. He was born with arthrogryposis, a congenital condition that limits joint flexibility from the ankles to the neck. His chosen sport is track and field. He overcame his disability to win 4 gold medals at the 2012 Paralympic Games in London, and he was also hailed as Athlete of the Month by the U.S. Olympic Committee. Some of the following are his experience and achievements as an athlete.
Lesson 2: Accepting Others. Intersubjectivity requires accepting differences and not imposing on others. No intersubjectivity is possible without the recognition and acceptance of our differences. Accepting our differences may open the doors to many opportunities, such as beneficial formal agreements, friendships, work prospects, or a broader understanding of the world, and this helps us to progress and mature. If we treat others with the same degree of respect we would like to be treated ourselves, then it would not be hard to accept them for what they are. Tolerance is a key to move towards accepting other people's opinions and respecting our differences. By definition, tolerance is the ability or willingness to tolerate the presence of opinions or attitude that we dislike or disagree with. Having or displaying an overly critical point of view will not help in accepting our differences. We should embrace our differences, not be disapproving about them, and lastly, to listen to others' opinions does not necessarily mean to deviate from our own conviction. For our own good, entertaining a different opinion may even make us think deeper and improve our perspective on things.
Intersubjectivity looks at others as rooted within the self. It is safe to say that this concept also promotes a view that all people are equal. Equality is about ensuring that every individual has an equal opportunity to make the most of their lives and talents. It is also the belief that no one should have a poor life chances because of the way they were born, where they came from, what they believe, or whether they have a disability. This would imply that people from other sectors of society, such as those who have physical disabilities or socioeconomic challenges, are seen as individuals with the same potential and talents as anybody else. As you can see, everyone has the power to understand relationships and interactions that occur in the society with little regard to social or physical differences. All human beings are born free and equal and should be treated the same way. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. In effect, people who are marginalized may still be seen as significant contributors to society through their talents, skills, and capabilities.
Lesson 3: Appreciating people with disabilities.
Intersubjectivity generally means something that is shared between two minds. As used in the social sciences, it refers to the psychological relationship between people. It is usually used to highlight and contrast individual personal experiences by emphasizing the inherently social being of humans. A good way to think about intersubjectivity is to imagine how you relate to your family and friends. Maybe your mother enjoyed playing tennis. She took you with her when she practiced, and you always had a good time. Growing up, you decided to join the school tennis team. If your mother had not played tennis with you growing up, you may not have grown to like the sport. Your experience with tennis can be called intersubjective because it was influenced by another person, which is your mother. In order to better understand intersubjectivity, we first need to define a subject and an object. A subject is the person experiencing an action or event, and an object is what is being experienced.
So let us now talk about the significant contributions of intersubjectivity to society and relationships. First, it validates real and authentic subjective experiences. Second, it facilitates interaction among individuals. Third, it enables individuals to look at others equally, regardless of any physical or social demographic factor. Fourth, it promotes a sense of community and unity among individuals. And lastly, it emphasizes that anyone can contribute to society. The concept of intersubjectivity. The concept of intersubjectivity also promotes a view that all people are equal. This would imply that people from other sectors, such as those who have physical disabilities or socioeconomic challenges, are seen with the same potential and talents as anybody else. Because intersubjectivity is unbiased, everyone has the power to understand relationships and interactions occurring within the society with little regard to social or physical deficiencies. In effect, people who come from marginalized situations are still seen as significant contributors to society through their talents, skills, and capabilities. The concept of intersubjectivity not only counters the undiluted subjectivism of extreme philosophical idealism, but also the pure objectivism of naive realism, since same constraints filter our apprehension of the world. Things and their meanings are intersubjective to the extent that we share common understandings of them. Cultural identity is experienced through intersubjectivity.
Intersubjectivity refers to the shared awareness and understanding among persons. The perfect example for this is a dialogue. Dialogue is a written composition in which two or more characters are represented as conversing. This is according to Merriam-Webster. Dialogue is used in all forms of writing, from novels to news articles to plays and even in some poetry. Here is an example of a dialogue from a novel, Alice in Wonderland. "Oh, you can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here." "I'm mad, you're mad." As you can see, there is an exchange of conversation in the example, emphasizing the "said the cat." Another example is a conversation between two people which normally happens. Perhaps you won't notice we already practice dialogue. Talking to your friends, family, strangers, and others that can communicate practices the use of dialogue. Dialogue is an interaction between persons that happen through speech or the use of words, expressions, and body language. It occurs when two people open up to each other, give and receive one another in their encounter. Genuine dialogue occurs when persons are willing to share themselves with one another. The awareness of each other's presence as a true person is defined by the acceptance of each other's uniqueness and differences. This picture is an example of a dialogue.
Martin Buber was an Austrian Jewish and Israeli philosopher, and he was born on February 8, 1878 in Vienna, Austria-Hungary, and he was died on June 13, 1965 in Jerusalem, Israel, by the age of 87 years old. Buber was best known for his philosophy of dialogue, a form of existentialism centered on the distinction between the I-do relationship and the I-it relationship. Born in Vienna, Buber came from a family of observant Jews, but broke up with Jewish custom to pursue secular studies in philosophy. In 1902, he became the editor of the weekly Die Welt, the central organ of the Zionist movement, although he later withdrew from organizational work in Zionism. In 1923, Buber wrote his famous essay on existence, Ich and Du, later translated in English as I and Du, and in 1925 he began translating the Hebrew Bible into the German language, reflecting the patterns of the Hebrew language. Martin Buber was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature 10 times, and Nobel Peace Prize 7 times. Martin's Buber philosophy of dialogues are the I and Do. Buber's best-known work is the short philosophical essay, The I and the Do, in 1923, the basic tenets of which he was to modify, but never to abandon. In this work, Buber gives expression to the intuition that we need to withstand the temptation to reduce human relations to the simple, either or the Apollonian or Dionysian, rational or romantic ways of relating to others. We are beings that can enter into dialogic relations, not just with humans, others, but with other animate beings, such as animals or a tree, as well as with the divine dog. The duality of relations, and at its extreme, their coincidence may serve as the key to Buber's nature to undo everything from his approach to biblical faith to his practical politics in matters of Jewish-Arab relations in Palestine. I and Do was first translated into English in 1937 by Ronald Gregor Smith, and later again by Walter Kaufmann. The German original was an instant classic and remains in print today. In the 1950s and 60s, when Buber first traveled and lectured in the USA, the essay became popular in the English-speaking world as well. Whereas before World War I, Buber had promoted an aesthetic of unity and unification. His later writings embraced a rougher and more elemental dualism. Buber always opposed philosophical monism, which he identified with Bergson, and objected to doctrines of immersion, which he identified with Buddhism, complicating the undifferentiated shape of mystical experience as sought by the medievals, including Eckhart as annihilation of self. The profoundly dualistic worldview proved in I and Do references causa coincidentia oppositorum as an expression of human limits. Buber's text reduced the relation between persons, animate objects, and deity to three expressive signifiers: I, you, and it. They are the elemental variables whose combination and recombination structure all experience as relational. The individuated elements realize themselves in relations, forming patterns that burst into life, grow, vanish, and revive. Human intersubjectivity affirms the polymorphous I-do encounter, resting upon the claim that no isolated I exists apart from relationship to one another. Dialogue or encounter transform each figure into an ultimate and mysterious center of value whose presence elude the concepts of instrumental language. The heteronymous revelation of a singular presence calls the subject into an open-ended relationship, a living pattern that defies sense, logic, and proportion, whereas the I-it relationship, and in its most degenerate stage, assumes that fixed forms of objects that one can measure and manipulate. At the core of this model of existence is the notion of encounter as revelation. As understood by Buber, revelation is the revelation of presence. In contrast to object, the presence revealed by revelation as encounter occupies the space in between the subject and the other. This in-between space is defined as mutual, contrasting with the Kantian concept of experience, or revelation of shared presence is an ineffable, pure form that carries not an iota of determinate, or object-like conceptual or linguistic content. Buber always insisted that the dialogue principle, the duality of primal words that he called the I-do and the I-it, was not an abstract conception, but an ontological reality that he pointed to, but that could not be properly represented in discursive prose. The confusion between philosophy and religion is especially marked in I and do. While Buber seems to lack a fully worked out epistemology and occasionally reveals in paradoxes that border on mystical theology, it has been argued that Buber did indeed solve the inherent difficulty of dialogics that it reflects on and speaks of, a human reality about which, in his own words, one cannot think and speak in an appropriate manner. Debates about the strengths and weaknesses of I and do as the foundation of a system hinge, in part on the assumption that the 5-volume project to which this book was to serve as a prolegomena was indeed a philosophical one. Buber's lecture at the Fries Judice Leros and his course at the University of Frankfurt, as well as letters to Rosenwig, showed that at the time of its writing, he was preoccupied with new approach to the phenomenology of religion. In Buber's cyclical conception of the history of religions, the revelation of presence mixes into and animates the living and lived forms of historical religion, institutions, texts, rituals, images, and ideas, becoming over time ossified and rigid and object-like, but structurally open to the force of renewal based on new forms of encounter as revelation. The history of religion as described by Buber in closing words of I and do is contracting, intensifying spiral figure that has redemption as its telos. It would be artificial, however, to separate Buber's interest in religion phenomena from his interest in a general philosophical anthropology. Rather, Buber seems to have tried to find one in the other, or put differently, to make religious belief and practice perspicacious in light of a general philosophical anthropology.
Martin Buber's I-the relationship. The major theme of the book is that authentic human existence manifests in genuine dialogue with each other, with the world, and even with God. The book explored the psychology of individual men in two distinct relationships, namely the I-it and the I-thou. The first mode, which Buber calls experience, which refers to the mode of I-it, is the mode that modern man almost exclusively uses. Through experience, man collects data of the world, analysis, classifies and theorizes about them. Thus, there is a distance between the experiencing I and experience it, for the former acts as a subject and the latter as a passive object, a mere recipient of the act. since there is no relationship that occurs in experience, the I lacks authentic existence, for it's not socially growing or developing, perhaps only gaining knowledge about the object. So for Buber, unless the I meets an other I, that is another subject of experience, relationship is never established. Only when there is an I encounter can there be an experience. In the other mode of existence, which Buber calls encounter, which is the mode of I thou, both the I and the other enter into a genuine relationship as active participants. In this relationship, human beings do not perceive each other as consisting of specific isolated qualities, but engage in a dialogue involving each other's whole being, and in which the other is transformed into a thou or you. This treating the other as a you and not an it is, for Buber, made possible by love, because in love, subjects do not perceive each other as objects, but subjects. In this relationship, therefore, all living beings meet each other as having a unity of being and engage in a dialogue involving each other's whole being. It is a direct interpersonal relation which is not mediated by any intervening system of ideas, that is, no object of thoughts intervenes between I and thou. Thus the thou is not a means to some object or goal, and the I, through its relationship with the thou, receives a more complete, authentic existence. The more that I and thou share the reality, the more complete is their reality.
Buber's I-thou mode of relationship has shown as a clearer path to genuine living through authentic relation to others. By valuing the others, we also encourage or give them reason to value us. Authenticity, therefore, lies in reciprocal, intersubjective relations wherein, despite our differences, we recognize each others as humans. The others are not means, tools, or instruments for the fulfillment of my whims, but rather they are companion in life, a friend to rely on, a person worthy to live with. Life is best lived when others are there to encourage me when I feel like giving up, to challenge me so I can bring out the best in me, to remind me when I forget to act morally, or even just to sit beside me while listening to me in my loneliest moment. But my life will be more authentic when I manifest those things to others. In this era of technology, when people are more engrossed in their gadgets, more superficial in dealing with each other, more individualistic in doing things solely by themselves, an authentic I-thou mode of human relationship is significantly essential more than ever. People used to spend more time touching their gadgets than talk with the person in front of them. There is no substitute to the value of real encounter with real people for a sense of care, respect, and commitment is only built through I-thou relationship. In addition, Buber's I-thou did not only deepen our respect and the value we give for each other as human, it also made us connect to God, whom we always set aside in our life. Buber is clear in his statement that I-thou relationship is not just a plain human encounter, but also a divine encounter with God.
The recognition of our shared humanity and dignity is what drives us to extend assistance and act concern towards others, especially towards individuals or groups that experience hardships and discrimination. For instance, those who are physically and mentally challenged often experience hardships because of their condition. Despite their limitations, many of them have successfully transcended their disabilities to become productive and happy individuals. And these are some of them.
Stephen Hawking and his significant contribution in the society. Who is Stephen Hawking? Stephen William Hawking was an English theoretical physicist, cosmologist, and author who, at the time of his death, was director of research at Center for Theoretical Cosmology at the University of Cambridge. He was born on January 8, 1942, Oxford, United Kingdom. Died on March 14, 2018, Cambridge, United Kingdom. Hawking was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ASL, commonly referred to in the U.S. as Lou Gehrig's disease. As ALS progresses, the degeneration of motor neurons in the brain interface with messages to muscles in the body. Eventually, muscles atrophy and voluntary control of muscles is lost. His ailment might be due to an inability to absorb vitamins. Hawking studied physics at University College, Oxford in 1962 and Trinity Hall, Cambridge in 1966. He was elected a research fellow at Granville and Caius College at Cambridge. In early 1960s, Hawking contracted amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, an incurable degenerative neuromuscular disease. He continued to work despite the disease's progressively disabling effects. Hawking is best known for his discovery that black holes emit radiation which can be detected by special instrumentation. His discovery has made the detailed study of black holes possible. Hawking's scientific works included a collaboration with Roger Penrose on gravitational singularity theorems and the frameworks of general relativity and the theoretical prediction that black holes emit radiations, often called Hawking radiation. Hawking worked primarily in the field of general relativity and particularly on the physics of black holes. In 1971, he suggested the formation, following the Big Bang, of numerous objects containing as much as 1 billion tons of mass, but occupying one only space of a proton. These objects, called mini-black holes, are unique in that their immense mass and gravity require that they be ruled by the laws of relativity, while their minute size requires that the law of quantum mechanics apply to them also. In 1974, Hawking proposed that, in accordance with the prediction of quantum theory, black holes emit subatomic particles until they exhaust their energy and finally explode. Publications included The Large-Scale Structure of Space-Time, co-authored with G.F.R. Ellis, Superspace and Supergravity, The Very Early Universe, and the bestsellers A Brief History of Time. From Big Bang to Black Holes, The Universe in a Nutshell, A Briefer History of Time, and The Grand Design, co-authored with Leonard Mlodinow. Hawking's contributions to physics earned him many exceptional honors. In 1974, the Royal Society elected him one of its youngest fellows. He became professor of gravitational physics at Cambridge in 1977, and in 1979, he was appointed to Cambridge Lucasian Professorship of Mathematics, a post once held by Isaac Newton. Hawking was made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 1982 and a Companion of Honor in 1989. He also received the Copley Medal from the Royal Society in 2006 and the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009. In 2008, he accepted a visiting research chair at the Perimeter Institute of Theoretical Physics in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada.
Oprah Winfrey as a child Oprah Winfrey experienced in living a poor household and was sexually abused. Despite this, she motivated herself to succeed and did so by being one of the richest women alive today. She became Miss Black America, host of AM Chicago, and got an Oscar award. That's a lot, but wait until you hear the rest. In school, she became Miss Fire Prevention, Miss Black Tennessee, Miss Black Nashville, Miss Black America, and got an all scholarship to Tennessee University. Also, when she was working in the television business, she earned an Academy Award, Golden Globe Award, and an Oscar Award. Oprah hosted AM Chicago, the lead onto having her own production company called Harpo, which is Oprah spelled backward. Winfrey also launched a website called Oxygen for Women. Contribution to society. Oprah Winfrey has donated over $5 million to school to pay for scholarships. She also owns a scholarship program. Winfrey opened a school in South Africa for disadvantaged girls and also tried to help against child abuse. She owns a charity called the Oprah Winfrey Foundation and give a car to every person in her audience who can't afford one. Winfrey takes a hands-on approach in making a difference in the world. She often becomes involved in the causes and in promoting the organization or causes to which she donates.
Keller was born in Tuscumbia, Alabama on June 27, 1880. When he was only 19 months old, he contracted an illness that caused his disability. He and his parents were shocked by the loss of his ability to communicate at an early age, and as a result, he was difficult to blind and was considered as weird. But because of the focus on her by a teacher from the School for Blind of Perkins, Boston, and Sullivan, he overcame his disabilities. Keller was taught how to communicate. First, he learned how to figure out the alphabet signaled with his hand, followed by knowing the names of objects for 2 years. He was taught how to read and write in Braille system. Eventually, he learned how to speak by touching his throat and feeling the hum of his voice. Keller stepped into college, while Sullivan was with a next door. Aside from writing, Keller has also helped other people who can't see and hear around the world. Among Helen Keller's contribution to society were her fundraising and awareness initiatives with the American Foundation for the Blind. Her efforts to make Braille the standard system used to write books for the blind, and her work to have blind people included in the government definition of disabled, making them eligible for government aid. In addition, Keller radically changed public perception regarding what a disabled person could accomplish. Keller's fundraising efforts for the American Foundation for the Blind led to the organization being able to help blind individuals in the areas of education, employment, and independent living. The overseas wings of the organization focus on medical care and blindness prevention. At the 1931 World Council for the Blind, Keller pushed for Braille to become the worldwide standard used in books for the blind, replacing several other similar systems. Her efforts led to the standardization of Braille around the world.
So, these are the books that she wrote. It includes First, The Story of My Life, which was published in 1903, is a chronicles on the early years of Helen Keller, a young woman who became both deaf and blind at a young age. The book explores the challenges she faced growing up as a child with disabilities and introduces the amazing people who helped her along the way. Second is Optimism, which was also published in the year 1903. In her text Optimism and Say, Helen Keller discusses her positive outlook on life. She understood optimism as a mindset cultivated over time. Helen said, "The struggle which evil necessitates is one of the greatest blessings. It makes us strong, patient, helpful for men and women." Third is The World I Live In. This was published in the year 1903. Keller conveys what life is like for a deaf and blind but fiercely intelligent woman. She doesn't recall events chronologically. Instead, she concentrates on imagery, the feel of faces under her fingers, the sense of her childhood, and her dreams. This book offers Helen's remarkable insight of the world's beauty perceived through the sensations of touch, smell, and vibration, together with the workings of a powerful imagination. Fourth, My Religion, in the year 1927. It was originally published in 1927. It is Keller's famous spiritual autobiography. She discusses mystical truths that were to my faculties with light, color, and music are to the eye and the ear. Here she takes up her inner world and explains how her spirit found itself, searched for adequate interpretation of life, and found faith and hope and serenity. Fifth is Helen Keller's Journal, which was published in the year 1938. It is a story of deep sorrow and of the conquest of sorrow by faith, by duty, by vital interest in life and in life's impersonal values. This diary captures the moment she spent with Polly, her replacement, for example, speaking on a record for the blind in France to introduce the talking books for the blind. Lastly, The Open Door, which was published in the year 1957. This is a book where Helen Keller opens up the capabilities of a deaf and blind. Because although she is deaf and blind, she learned to think with a philosophical depth of understanding that reaches the minds and hearts of all. And because she learned to express those thoughts with the clarity all writers must envy.
Nicholas James Nick Vujicic. Who is he? Nick is an Australian evangelist and motivational speaker who was born with phocomelia. He was born on 4th of December 1982. He presents motivational speeches worldwide on life with a disability, hope, and finding meaning in life. Nick is quite extraordinary due to his skills even with his disabilities. Vujicic accomplished many successful things in his life even with a disability against him. He motivates and teaches people that anyone can do they set their mind to. Nick Vujicic's history was outstanding. Despite his situation, he managed to pass any problems he was facing. By the time he turned 19 years old, he began his career as a motivational speaker, being able to encourage other people through his talks and sharing its testimony about how God changes his life. Today, he is the president and CEO of the non-profit organization Life Without Limbs. He has given many motivational speeches to students, youth, teachers, business people, and etc. Nick Vujicic's topics on his motivational speech includes Christianity, personal struggles, and anti-bullying.
Rosel Ambubuyog. She was born on January 12, 1980 to Gemi Fonte Ambubuyog of Pandan Antique and Diana Ballesteros Rodriguez of Sarat, Ilocos Norte. She is the only daughter and the youngest of 4 children. She was christened as Maria Genet Rosel Rodriguez Ambubuyog. Her father is Gemi Fonte Ambubuyog from Pandan Antique, and her mother is Diana Ballesteros Rodriguez from Sarat, Ilocos Norte. All of her siblings among her are all raised as Roman Catholics. Lost her eyesight when she was 6 years old due to damaged corneas resulting from the adverse effects of Stevens-Johnson syndromes, or SJS. Stevens-Johnson syndrome is a rare, serious disorder of the skin and mucous membrane. It is an excessive reaction of the human immune system to chemicals inhaled or orally introduced to the body. This happened because she had asthma, which triggered 12 days after taking a medication prescribed by her doctor for asthma. She is the first visually impaired Filipina to become summa cum laude at one of the big universities in the Philippines, which is at the Ateneo de Manila University, in 2001. She graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics and a minor in actuarial science. She was able to achieve academic excellence despite her disability and has inspired people with her life story of success over the odds. She consistently graduated with the highest academic achievements since elementary. The model Montessori child in Holy Infant Montessori School in 1986. Class valedictorian in Batino Elementary School in 1993. Class valedictorian in Ramon Magsaysay High School, Manila in 1997, and class valedictorian in Ateneo de Manila University in 2001. Behind her success and being the first blind student at the Ateneo, a Braille translation software program was purchased to make the exams, questionnaires, lecture notes, and other classroom materials accessible to Roselle. It converts encoded or scanned text to computer Braille format. Braille translation software translates electronic documents into Braille code. It is similar to ink printers. Braille embossers emboss Braille characters onto paper for tactile reading by a blind reader. Her career and accomplishments. Roselle set up a project with the code name Project Roselle, which donated special software, desktop computers, scanners, and Braille printers to schools that have a mainstream education program for the blind. She was employed as consultant contractor for human-computer interaction at Freedom Scientific Incorporation for people with vision impairment and learning disabilities. It is an access technology company based in St. Petersburg, Florida in USA, which developed Windows PC solutions for people with vision impairment and learning disabilities. She works as the product and support manager of Code Factory SL of Barcelona in Spain, which is the world's leading provider of screen reading, magnification, and braille access solutions for blind and partially sighted people using mobile devices and PDA. She is part of the Microsoft Office Icons campaign, part of the Asian Center for Trainers and Speakers, and she also helped Sorotech Corporation of Minneapolis, Minnesota in USA to introduce in the Philippines the low-cost screen reading software for Windows called System Access. It is a free internet-based version that is now available worldwide and promoted especially to blind computer users in developing countries, and it is also introduced to more than 800,000 blind and visually impaired Filipinos.